Hey everybody, it's Bergeron here with you. And for the next couple of videos, we're going to look at perspective. I've taught perspective dozens and dozens of times, and I've come down to a few very essential skills. And I think once you understand those essential skills, you'll be able to pick up on perspective really quickly and make really good use of it. Perspective is used not just in built environment drawings like this, which would be linear perspective, but perspective is also used in landscape drawings and paintings. So it's used in a variety of ways, and I'm going to show you how I use it and how to best make use of it. All right, so the first type of perspective that we're going to use, and this would be used in landscape painting or landscape drawing, is color perspective. So color perspective is pretty simple. As we get further and further away from things, they become grayer and grayer. So you can see these hills that are at a long distance away. These are probably 40 or 50 kilometers away from where it was I took this photo, but these hills are gray. And why they're gray is because the light is traveling a long distance through the atmosphere, and a lot of that light that had color in it is getting filtered out. That's a really simplified version of it, but that's essentially what is happening. Is the light is traveling through the atmosphere, and that light is traveling a long ways through the atmosphere, and the particles of water and other things in the atmosphere are filtering out those colors, and that's why we see it looking gray. So if you're doing a painting or a drawing of landscape, you need to think about making those things that are at a long distance away less and less colorful, more and more gray. So you see these arrows are pointing at those areas. The next type of perspective I want to look at is acuity perspective. And acuity really means detail. So as we get further and further away from a subject that we're drawing and painting, we start to see less and less of the detail. So you'll see on the left-hand side of this photograph where the sky meets the land, there's a little village over in there. That's the village of Campbellford. And further to the right is Brighton, Ontario. And you can't really see anything. You can see maybe a couple little buildings in there, but you can't really see too much about what's going on in those villages. You can see a couple of little church steeples maybe, but that's about it. So the further you get away from a subject, the less detail you see. And that's acuity perspective. So this is another thing that you would use in landscape drawing or landscape painting. And you can see here is another great example. This is a little restaurant that's near the water. On the right hand side there's a parking lot. You can see that there's some cars in that parking lot, and there's people in this restaurant because I just came out of it and I know there's people in that restaurant, but you can't see any of the people in that restaurant. On the far left hand side you can see that there's a little fire burning on the far left hand side, and there was actually a whole bunch of people out by that fire, but you can't really see any of them. So as we get further and further away from our subject, we see less and less detail. Here's another great example. Here's three people walking across a set of railway tracks. You can't tell me too much about these people other than they're maybe wearing a red coat and a black coat, but you can't tell me what brand of clothing that they're wearing or what their eye color is. So as we move away from a subject, again, we see less and less detail. All right, so the type of perspective that most people are concerned about is linear perspective. And there's a whole bunch of different types of linear perspective. But what linear perspective really tells us is that two parallel lines seem to merge together at a distance. So two parallel lines that are easy to think about is a railway track. So here's a photograph I took of a railway track. I'm looking a long ways. It's a perfectly flat place here, and you can see that at some distance these two parallel lines seem to merge together. So this will happen whether you're talking about railway tracks or a road or a sidewalk or buildings or anything like that at a far distance, and it's going to be different for a lot of different reasons, but mostly because of your position. Those parallel lines are going to seem to merge together. Here's another good example. I'm looking down this long sidewalk perfectly flat. And you'll see that on the right hand side, the buildings shrink and shrink and shrink as they get away from us. And the sidewalk gets narrower and narrower and narrower. And those lines seem to merge together the further they get away from us. All right, so let's review. There's 3 types of perspective. Color perspective, the loss of color over a distance. As the light travels through the atmosphere, we lose some of the color of that distant object. Acuity perspective, the loss of detail over a distance. We're only able to see distance at a very short, we're only able to see detail at a very short distance. So the further we are away from something, the less detail we see. And then the final one, linear perspective, parallel lines seem to converge at a single point at a distance. We use this process in our drawing and painting to create depth on a flat surface. And that's really it. So if you've learned anything from this video, please click like. If you're currently a subscriber to my channel, I thank you very much. And if you're not currently a subscriber, please consider subscribing to my channel so you can get all the rest of this series on perspective. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you again real soon.